Thank you, everybody, for coming. Welcome to the Hollywood T4 Halacha Business Halacha Initiative kickoff event. Rishus, all the Rabbanim, and all those that have come to join us in this moment. It's wonderful to see different groups and all different shuls that have come together for one reason only, to grow together, to learn together, to come together as a community to accomplish great things. I want to thank you all for making it here tonight. The T4 Business Halacha Initiative was a dream inspired by the Stockholm Braverman together with the North Miami Beach Kyle as a means, as a platform for providing education, awareness, and guidance to businesses, all different types, to empower them with being able to structure their businesses appropriately in the correct way that the Torah requires us to do, to allow people a format of question and answers, to give people the guidance that they need to do what's right in their business. Our goal here tonight, I've had the privilege of working with them for the past year, is to expand this to Hollywood, that there should be monthly, hopefully, events similar to this, discussing a range of topics with different presenters, different Rabbanim, to encourage people to learn more, to bring awareness, and to provide the guidance that we need in order to do things correctly. The T4 Business Halacha Initiative has been operating, has a website with a tremendous amount of resources, many different shiurim, which can all provide CLEs, continual lawyer education, for those who are attorneys. Speak to Rabbi Parsons to get that done. We've done lunch and learns at the office. If anyone would like to schedule a lunch and learn or any sort of learning program for themselves, please speak to Rabbi Parsons. We'd be happy to join and to bring the awareness and to do that. You can learn more about the initiative. There's a QR code at the front, and there's many different resources here. Please take the time and moment to learn a little more. It's so powerful for what you can do for yourself. You can gain tremendously from it, and we're here to help. We're here to build together and to grow together. I would like to show a small video representing the program, showing a little bit what we do, and it's appropriate time, as I mentioned before, that this initiative was the dream of the Stockholm Braverman law offices. We want to thank you very much for sponsoring the entire initiative, and a very special thank you to Bernathan Rosenberg. A very special thank you to Bernathan Rosenberg, CPA and Wealth Advisors, for sponsoring tonight's event and being the initiative of helping bring it to Hollywood. We could not have done this without you. Both of you are inspiration to all of us and to businesses worldwide, specifically here in South Florida, to accomplish the right thing, educate ourselves in what Hashem wants from us, and to become better people and better businessmen overall. After the video, Rabbi Singer from the North Miami Beach Kyle, Rosh Kyle, will share with us a few words, and from there we'll have the schus of hearing from our special presenter from Lakewood, Diane Kushner. As someone who learned in Lakewood for many years, I don't know if all of you have heard from him, but if you're in Lakewood, you certainly know of him, and you certainly have heard of him. It's a tremendous privilege to have him here tonight. He's a wonderful, wonderful presenter, and he brings a lot to the table, and he's a name that you will come to remember and enjoy. Without further ado.
The depth of Shulchan Aruch, especially in Kushner Mishpat, is that everything's covered, and there's something that you can find that every scenario and every case, and even the most contemporary and complicated issues are dealt with really significantly. When a Jewish individual comes to the law offices of Stockholm and Braverman with a dispute with another Jew, they will give them that knowledge and that awareness that this is something that should be taken to a basement. That in and of itself is such a tremendous benefit, not only in terms of actually having the matter adjudicated at a reasonable cost, but it's also making sure that they're aware that halacha has something to say about this.
Any society or civilization requires rules and regulations. In the Torah, what we call rules or laws is called halacha. Halacha is the way of life. Understand the American court system, understand how it's supposed to be run, and together, if the Rabbanim were involved, together they can make a proper psak din that's properly enforceable by the rule of law.
The T4 Business Halacha Initiative is a collection of classes, symposiums, networking summits where business leaders come. It's essentially to give more education, more awareness, and more power to the people so that they can understand what halacha demands of them and do everything Yashir Tov.
The
whole T4, if I was going to put it in 2 words, Kiddush Hashem. We are here in this world to make a Kiddush Hashem, every single one of us. Whether you're a lawyer, or an accountant, a caterer, a driver, every single thing you're doing is an opportunity for a Kiddush Hashem.
The rabbis at the T4 initiative are a hugely helpful resource in terms of bouncing questions off them, ideas off them, navigating the based-in process.
You saved $500,000 in legal fees. You saved all this aggravation. You're doing what Hashem wants you to do, and eventually it is completely enforceable. If you're a lawyer, you actually get CLE credits, continuing legal education. You're not paying for the CLE, and you're learning Torah at the same time. And you're also networking and making friends and meeting other lawyers. So it's a win-win-win.
It's a beautiful thing, and it really gives you perspective on life like nothing else.
There's always a winner and a loser. A lot of times the loser is bitter and the winner is elated, but after a Bezdin, both sides feel that justice was achieved.
We want business to be done according to the way Hashem wants it to be. The end goal is that we want to arm people with information that they feel that they're structuring their lives in Torah-oriented people.
In other communities around America, this knowledge is not present. A rabbi will say, go to the base, and I don't know what to tell you. But because of this initiative, the rabbis here in North Miami Beach and in South Florida in general now have this knowledge at their disposal, and they're using it to spread it to all the Baladatim and all the communities. The depth of
My name is Aaron David Singer from North Miami Beach. I'm not going to speak. I'm just introducing a little bit and giving proper thank yous to all the people that made this happen. Number one, I want to say thank you to Rabbi Nightingale from Esha Torah for letting us use, I don't think he's here now, but for letting us use the Beis Medrash, the Shul, whatever is the proper terminology for it. Shkoyach to him and to whoever else made that decision and allowed it to happen. Number two, I want to thank the law office of Stockton and Braverman, who really created this entire thing together with Pleasure and the Kollel, and nothing would happen if it wasn't for them. And it's a tremendous thing what they've done, what they've accomplished in bringing Choshen Mishpat to people to understand Biz Halacha, not only to bring the information, but to actualize it and do it, and have the lawyers have knowledge of Choshen Mishpat to make sure everything always goes properly in the law of the land, plus in Halacha. And we say shkoyach to those who are here. Actually, Bob Stock is here. Bob is here, and David Rosenblatt, and Ed Robbins, Moshe Katz, Yossi Kudan, and Josh Khan. Shkoyach to all of you for being here, supporting and making this happen. Also, the sponsor of tonight's event, and also the ones who really pushed to make this initiative not just in North Miami Beach, but pushed it also to Hollywood, was, as Rabbi Goldschmidt said, Berneth and Rosenberg, who now have an office here in Miami. They are CPAs and wealth advisors. That's what you said? That's what I thought you said. But CPAs, wealth advisors, and we have representatives. Yossi Shuk is here, Yehuda Lifshitz, and Yossi Berger from their offices. Shkoyach to them, and they should continue having lots of bracha and atzlacha in their own business, and also being marbitz Torah, Yer Shamayim, Halacha, Dinei Choshen Mishpat, Biz Halacha, and all wonderful things, B'siyata D'Shmai. Shkoyach to Rabbi Goldschmidt, who learns by us in our Chabura over our Choshen Mishpat Chabura North Miami Beach Kollel, for taking the lead on expanding this initiative here to Hollywood, and all hard work he did to make this event happen. And shkoyach also to the bunch of Rabbanim from Hollywood that I saw. I'm not going to name everybody, but all the Rabbanim that came here to come support the initiative, and b'siyata d'shmai, we hope to partner with them many more in the many events we hope to make here in Hollywood to continue the chizuk in Dinei Choshen Mishpat. And last but not least at all, is my close friend Rabbi Parsons. Where is he? Who, through his mamish Mesiras Nefesh, for his incredible hard work. We work together very closely for many, many, many hours of the day. And the fact that he's able to stand there being with me for long hours already is a testament to his Gewaldige character. But the hard work he puts in to make everything happen smoothly, it looks like it was well done over. It's amazing. But the amount of effort and thought and mental capacity that it took to create this event is really, because of Rabbi Parsons, it's tremendous work. Shkoyach to him. And you should see a lot of bracha and atzlacha and all good things in all your endeavors. Now, as Rabbi Goldschmidt said, Anybody who's ever in Lakewood knows Rabbi Kushner, and many people, he comes to us in North High Beach every single year, and he's very entertaining and tremendous going in Torah and Chesed Mishpat. And there's so many things that if we're not paying attention, we're not careful, we don't realize how many laws are applicable all the time in every business deal that a person makes. And a person, if he doesn't know what he's talking about, doesn't pay attention, he can violate many, many Torah laws on a regular basis, mamish day to day, without that knowledge, without the understanding. And Kushner has done amazing things for Klal Yisrael through his shiurim, through his svarim that he wrote, and things that he's in the shiurim that he gave as mefarsem, and he saved many yidden from violating these halachas. And b'siyata d'shmayim should be zeichet to be nisur, to be awakened, to mechuzak and strengthened into our dedication to turn halacha. With that, wherever Rabbi Kushner is, call Rabbi Kushner Yeshar Koyach.
Okay, I'm not an emotional guy, but this is it's just heartwarming how many people came out. Unbelievable, and there should be a Kiddush Shem Shemayim from these events moving forward. What is this about? So I want to talk to the topic, and then hopefully we'll get into halachas. But this introduction that I say, you have to trust me. It might be more important than anything. Than the halachas itself. Halachas sometimes it's hard to go through in a few minutes to get clear on topics, but I want everyone to understand one type of topics. Rabbi, use this way? I could use this way. Okay. In all areas of halacha, almost, besides business halacha, there are people who have more knowledge and there are people who have less knowledge. And I'm just going to give an example. Imagine it's raining on Shabbos and a person, he has limited knowledge in halacha. He takes his umbrella, there's an Erev, he opens the umbrella and he walks to shul, and the umbrella is not electric, he's allowed to carry. He takes the umbrella into shul and he thinks to himself, this is great, I came to shul and I'm dry. Okay? Now, the halacha is, I don't know if you do know this, you don't know this, so this will be the first halacha we say, you can't open an umbrella on Shabbos, okay? It's the making of an oil. Okay, but this person, he has limited knowledge growing up, or he was absent that week in yeshiva, and he was never taught you can't open an umbrella. And I can give a million examples. What's going to happen is one of two things. 50% of the people are going to see him walk in to shul with his umbrella, and they're going to say, that's weird. He has an umbrella on Shabbos. You're not allowed to have an umbrella. And they're going to go back to whatever they're doing. But there are certain people that are going to go over to him and say, I don't think you could have an umbrella. Okay, both people are right. There's a place for both of you, both of those people in society. When someone is completely missing knowledge, okay, we as Yidden do not live, we don't live in our own little islands. Sometimes you're driving somewhere and it's just completely like really rural, and you think to yourself, if I could just live here without the lachats and the pressures that go on in the city, you think this would be great. But it wouldn't be great. And the Rebbeinu Shalom made that we as Yidden live among each other. We have to have kashrus and yeshivas and mikvois. We live among each other. It's very, very important. And one of the mitzvot of Torah is hechiach techiach. He's supposed to let someone else know, that's a problem. And in general, Rabbi say, in general, when people are going through life and they're missing knowledge, nothing wrong with that, someone's going to tell them something. At some point, that's the way it's going to be. Rabbi say, there's a tremendous exception to this, and that is the laws of business. I'm going to say why it's like that. I think about this often because I get many, many times questions and on these topics, and a person could ask a shayla about A, and we start discussing his business, and I quickly tell him, A is the least of your problems. You are in big, big trouble. You understand? I tell him when we get to A as the problem, then you're in good shape. So the reason why it's like that is as follows. Imagine someone's being nosy. He's asking questions a little out of his space. What we tell him is, mind your own business. Even though he's not talking about business. He's talking about something else entirely, right? You tell him, mind your own business. Where did you get the car? How much is your lease, right? It's not his business, it's personal property, right? Where did you get it? How much? Yeah? And it's kedai, and mind your own business. Mind your own business is a mushal, it's a parable. That is what we all understand is my business is private and it's not for public discussion. What I do, the inner workings of my business is not for public discussion. Now why is it like that? People need a competitive edge and every person thinks they have their own secret sauce how they're making money. Usually they're 100% the same because I speak to businesses and everyone's doing the same thing and they're like, oh, this is what I do. And I know that's what you do. And many, many times a week I have calls. I have this business, I'm running an ABA, and he's like, you probably never heard of it, but this is really the big thing, and I'm going to tell you how it works. And I'm like, I know how it works, and I start telling him the different ways people do it. You understand? He's like, really? Anyway, so every person thinks that the way they run the business is very important, and that's how they're matzliach. We're not going to get into that, but the point is, what goes on in your business is really you're operating in the shadows. That's the way it is. I'm not saying your business is shady, but that's how people operate their businesses. It's not for public consumption how you pay your workers, are they paid per hour, who you hire. You have call centers. You think your call center that you have in the Philippines is your zach that you have. Everyone does it, and everyone thinks they're the only one who does it, right? And because of that, you will go through life. And if you don't know halachas, no one will tell you a thing because it's invisible. It's 100% invisible. You have tremendous rabbanim in Miami, and if you're talking in shul, eventually they'll tell you, you can't, this is not the way to behave. And if you walk in with an umbrella, he's going to tap you on the shoulder, say you can't do this when it's raining, and we can go on and on, but those are visible. And how you operate your business is invisible. Rabbi say, we all understand, if you're operating, imagine you're operating a big, massive commercial kitchen like Jay-Z's Steakhouse next door, right? Imagine you're running this kitchen, and never is there a shaila. Never once did you call a rav with a shaila. Never, ever. You're running a kitchen, or even your kitchen in your house. Your wife never had a shaila. Never once was there anything to discuss about the kitchen. Never once what did you cut a tomato with a fleishike knife, and then you're using that in a milchige soup? Never once. So when that happens, it's one of two things. Option number A, which could be, is you're a real expert on these halachas, and there's no shaila. You know the answer. But many times, what it means is you do not know what a shaila looks like. That's what it means. If you're not asking shailas, it's one of the two. You're a mumch in these halachas, or you don't know what a shaila looks like. And many times, the people who call me with shailas, they perceive what a shaila would be, and you can see they don't know what a shaila looks like. And the reason why is because these are not things that are visible. That's reason number one. Reason number two, equally important. Many of us, we grow up from houses. There's a chinuch in our house. And I'm not saying this is wrong, and I'm not judging, and I understand it, and maybe it's right. We, as parents, do not get our kids involved in our business. We don't talk about it. There are stresses in business. There are highs. There are lows. It has nothing to do with our kids. Our kids should feel like they're taken care of. What they need, hopefully, we could provide. Maybe a little extra. Maybe sometimes there's too much extra. We're not getting into that. But Rabbi say, there is very little chinuch in what goes on in a business and how a person has to act in a business. We're just not brought up like that. And if you go through life and you don't have a chinuch in this area, and the Rabbanim don't see what's going on, you could drift through life completely without guidance. And that's the way it is. I had, a few weeks ago, we had a din Torah, very, very heated din Torah. For no reason, din Torahs get heated. And there was a fellow who went and he worked as a handyman in the town that I live in. And he worked for 4 or 5 days, and they agreed it was $150 an hour he was charging for his work. He was helping the fellow get an inspection, and he was going to get the guy an inspection, and they didn't know exactly how many hours it would be, so they made up how many hours it is, and they made up $150 an hour, and that they both agreed on, and everything after that, they didn't agree on what happened. But when they came, we had one fellow who sent in an invoice on the day he finished for 36 hours with a full list of everything he did, and the guy's not answering. He runs after him, and finally the other guy says, impossible. 36 hours? I wouldn't call him to take so long. He's stealing from me. How many hours do you think it is? He says, 20 hours max. Okay, this is what this goes on for a month, 2 months. Finally, they came to Besdin. Okay, and the difference is a few $1,000s. The difference was, okay. He also went to buy him stuff in Home Depot that he agrees he has to pay. Okay, so we had this entire, and I'm not going to bore you with the details, because they're actually not boring, but it's not our topic, but I called this fellow aside, and I looked at him. These are two upstanding people. I called the fellow aside who didn't pay. I said, I want to tell you something. There's a halach in Shulchan Aruch. A person doesn't pay his worker. He's over on 1 essay and 5 lavin. 5. You can't, it's not an easy thing to do. In one act, to be over on 5 lavin, and Shulchan Aruch stresses this, and the poskim stress. A person doesn't pay his worker, ki'ilu natal nishmasoi. It's a terrible avon not to pay your worker on time. I said, and the Chavetz Chaim discusses this exact scenario, which is why I brought it up. I said, the Chavetz Chaim discusses this exact scenario, that a worker does work, there is a range of disagreement, but there's a range of agreement. You work 20 hours. I said, the guy worked 20 hours. I said, did you pay him? No. I said, so why didn't you pay him the 20 hours? So, and everyone here understands why he didn't pay him. He wants leverage, right? I want him to come down. It's a soft form of extortion, not a hard form of extortion, but I want him to come down or he's not getting anything, right? I said, you want leverage? Here's the problem. You have no leverage. You're not holding the cards, the president would say. You have no cards because you masking the guy worked 20 hours. You have to pay the guy, and you didn't pay him. I said, there's nothing to do with this entire. I'm just letting you know, you were over on Chamish Lavin and 1 essay, and you had no head to do it. And I don't understand how you could act like how you could act like this. And you know what he told me? He told me the truth. He said, I wouldn't call him that's usher. I wouldn't call him such a thing's usher. And 100% usher. It's not even negotiable, it's usher. And this is just in my mind now because it happened recently. Rabbi say, we don't have chinuch in this. We don't have exposure to these halachas. We don't have chinuch. These are just not things discussed because they're not visible. They're completely invisible. That's the way it is. And there's one more point I want to make. I grew up in Brooklyn. My father had a roofing company. Okay, it was called Kushner Roofing. And if you're from Brooklyn, from my tkufa, mid-40s, you probably heard of Kushner Roofing. Okay, now I'm going to describe the operation of Kushner Roofing, and it was very typical how companies ran in those days. My father went out with a crew of goyim, and I don't know what they did. They went on top of roofs. I don't know what happened. They went on top of roofs, and eventually they came down. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, I shouldn't make live. I knew it would go. Okay, and that's another point. I knew nothing, mamish nothing, but this much I knew. The accounting department was run by my mother, and the marketing department was run by my mother, and the billing department was run by my mother. And that's how they did. I don't know when they met about this, because I never saw them discussing. I guess when I was in yeshiva, but that was very typical how businesses ran. Okay, the legal department didn't exist. The human resource department didn't really exist. A few chevra from other nationalities would line up on Friday, and the billing department, which is again my mother, would give them money. That was the whole story. Okay. Now, on Shabbos, the business was closed. Now, I know the business was closed because my father wasn't working and my mother wasn't working. So let's review. The labor department was closed. The marketing department's closed. Billing department closed. Accounting department closed. HR closed. Everything's closed, okay? I have a cousin who went and did shimush by my father, right? Which is his uncle, right? And he opened a roofing company. And he has a roofing company now, okay? Successful roofing company. And he calls me with shilas. And it's a different world. 1,000,000% a different world. There's a proper legal department, marketing department, billing department. There's a website. People can book things. And you know who's maintaining the website? People in the Philippines. He doesn't want to tell anybody because he has this thing. He has guys in the Philippines. But he has call centers in the Philippines, right? It's a completely different world. And he thinks, and I shouldn't talk about him specifically, he keeps Shabbos. And you know how he knows he keeps Shabbos? Because on Shabbos, he goes to shul, and then he comes home, and he has a Suda, and he sings Menucha, V'simcha, or La Yehudim, and he's not working on Shabbos. So he knows he's keeping Shabbos, because he's physically keeping Shabbos. And guess what? His business is open on Shabbos, because his marketing department still has people doing work paid per hour, and maybe we'll get into these halachas. I mean, it could be open. I'm not saying it's open. It's Shabbos, right? But his accounting department is lav dafka closed on Shabbos. This is a very, very important thing that you have to realize, is that the status quo is completely changed, and it's probably going to change again with the invent of AI. It is so dynamic about what's going on that we cannot afford to just falazach how things were. You can't afford it. You know, you go to a wedding, I want to tell you, people, Yidden in America that are Shemitah mitzvahs, this is going on a small scale, 100 years, big scale, 40 years, right? It developed over time. And a wedding, a Jewish wedding, 50 years ago did not look like a Jewish wedding now. Slowly, Rabbanim came and they made tikkunim. And what we have now was done over time. And we take it for granted. But there were tikkunim done over time. And when there's a colossal shift, people don't realize how, they don't even know why things were done the way they were done. And then when there's a shift, it all could slowly fall apart. And I remember by COVID, you know, in Lakewood, there's a big yeshiva with a lot of eligible bachelors. There's a lot of dating going on. And we don't think about these things. But when a boy and girl go on a date in a hotel, there's no yichud. It's private in a sense, but it's not private. They're sitting in a lobby. People can see them. There's other dates sometimes, right? But by COVID, the hotel lobbies were closed. And so what happened? Good people that probably had accounting firms in Lakewood, they opened up their buildings at night because they have beautiful these rooms. I don't know how it makes money, but they have these beautiful rooms and boardrooms, and they opened up and they gave the codes out, and there was dating going on in these rooms. And I remember I was speaking then in Lakewood about an event around that time. I said, Rabbi Sai, COVID's not mevatel the laws of yichud. There never was a problem with yichud, but it was designed as such that there was no yichud. Right? The yichud is a boy and a girl can't be alone. And however do we define alone? Many of these cases was alone, right? And because there was such a massive shift in how things were done, people were losing sight of why it was done right, and now how it's done wrong. So this is very, very critical. Halacha initiatives on business and halacha, to stay in contact with Rabbanim, to go over just the basic tzura of what's going on in your business, and to know your liabilities. And this is very critical, very, very critical. If you're in a business, and I can't sit and address everybody, and I don't even know what anyone's business is here. In Lakewood, it's just real estate and nursing homes. You just have to talk to two people, right? Yeah, and then the people who run their taxes. But but you need to identify in your business what are my liabilities, halachic liabilities. If there's financing, if the word financing is coming up in your business, and it's not from a bank, a goyish bank or a public bank, but it's from individuals, it's from Yidden, you need to have a basic rudimentary knowledge of ribbis. Not that you have to master Perek Ezer Neshech, which is very difficult. And me and Rabbi Blezher spent years in BMG learning it. Remember those days fondly. But you have to know what a shaila looks like. You have to know to call a shaila, because if you don't know what a shaila looks like, Rabbi Blezher is not calling you. And he's not saying, from what I understand, you were over on ribbis. It's not going to happen. You have to call and you have to say, I have my financing, and you should know that in years back, it would be very difficult. And today's day and age, it's not difficult. There are available in all languages, Hebrew and English, on just a wide spectrum of levels and halacha. You can educate yourself. You really can. And if you're earning money on Shabbos, money's being earned on Shabbos, you need to learn about Schas Shabbos. And if there's any employees from the top to the bottom, I don't care where they're located, any employees are working on Shabbos, I'm talking about those chevra in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines, who are doing the IT on your website, you should know your business is not closed on Shabbos. I'm not saying you're being over, but you have to know how to set it up. And many times you don't. And your Rav, he doesn't know about those Philippines because that's his secret source. You're not telling him, right? So this is what's happening. It's completely invisible. And these showers are just not going answered because they're not being asked. They're not being asked. So if you have a business that's open on Shabbos, if you have money being earned on Shabbos in a passive way, in an active way, or there is finance issues, okay? If you're in nursing homes, you have to learn every siman in Shulchan Aruch because there's nothing that doesn't apply to you. Start with Ritzicha and go backwards, and that's the way it is. You know, we have this big Yachikala in Lakewood, very big Yachikala, 500 people. We go to a hotel for a few days, and people bring their whole companies. People come with 50, 70 guys. So it sounds like a lot, 500, but really it's, 5, 10 big companies, and then other chevra that just come. Okay, and people sponsor all their employees, and they come. One of the biggest sponsors, a friend of mine, became a friend of mine. He comes over to me after like 8 years. He's like, I'm doing so much for this Yachikal, and he's paying. It costs him a lot of money. He's bringing all these workers. He's paying for these workers to come. His business essentially is closed. Besides the ladies in the office, there's no Yachikal for them. And he tells me, I get this feeling every year. The topic is like needling at me. He's like, I'm doing so much for this year. Can you just discuss other things? Discuss other things. I remember we did Shabbos, Surya, no, and then we did Ribbis. He felt he was being picked on. He's being picked on. And he feels he earned enough credibility not to be picked on. And I said, I want to tell you something. You pick the topic. And you're going to see you have real liabilities. I don't know why I'm picking on nursing homes now. I don't even know if people are in nursing homes here. Anyways, Rabbi Sai, this is why, for these reasons, these initiatives, this has to be the beginning, and you have to really, really stay engaged. I have more time, so I'm going to discuss some halachas. And I remember, and this is one more thing. A fellow called me. I didn't get the whole story, but I'm just going to give you the whole history. A fellow called me. It seems like this is a family, a very wealthy family, generational wealth, and they build hotels. Okay, they build hotels. Okay, and this fellow's grandfather was Shomer Torah Mitzvahs, was Shomer Shabbos. Doesn't sound like his parents were. These people live out of town. And he was becoming more from. And he was describing the business, and he wanted to know if it could, there was construction happening on Shabbos. Okay. So I discussed the Metzias as best as I can with him. I told him this is a very big problem. And really, you want to ask me what the right thing is to do. I don't know if you have control on it. This fellow was one among many cousins, and it was very limited control. So there was a lot of things we had to discuss what he can do, because he didn't have the ability to really change everything, but there were things he can do, whatever it is. So he told me, I want to tell you something. I almost feel like it can't be what you're saying is true. My grandfather, I know he was makbid on Shabbos, and he operated on Shabbos. Okay? So I said, let me look into this. This is a place near Washington, D.C., and I happen to have a friend who is in Silver Springs. So I took down the neighbor, and I called him. I said, what's the makeup of this place? He said, this place used to have no Yidden whatsoever. And the Yidden just moved in there for the last 20 years. And I asked him, you know this family? He said, yeah, they live near there. That area where they're building over there in that headquarters, there was no Yidden. And now there's Yidden. And what happened is that a person cannot operate on Shabbos in the vicinity of Yidden. The halachas of operating on Shabbos, even under the conditions that one is allowed, he has the right structure of how he pays his worker, person cannot operate on Shabbos, person can't do construction in the vicinity of Yidden, because Yidden see it and they don't know what his exact makeup of how he structured his business. That's called Marisayan. So that's the first halach we'll learn. It's something called Marisayan, which Marisayan means is that people see, and it doesn't. It creates a false premise to people that you're not keeping Shabbos, and that's a halacha that you're not allowed to do that. Okay, and the point I'm bringing is as follows. And when people call me, I try to, even though it's very hard. There's a lot of people who call, but when someone calls, and you have to sometimes, more than yes or no, you have to know why. Because if you don't know why, then tomorrow or in 3 days when your business has changed, it changed and now the yes became a no. But you had no idea why it was yes or no. So you have to educate yourself to the best of your ability about what it is and why. And another thing is, if you have a business that's open on Shabbos and you went to a Rav and he tells you it's supposed to be closed, but if you're mamish, you're not holding by closing it, let's say, we're going to do something, we're going to write whatever we're going to do. We'll do something that's maybe not l'chatchila, not the best, but it's better than nothing, let's say. Sometimes there are people I speak to that have businesses that are running, and I say, what are you doing about Shabbos? And they say, they spoke to a Rav. I said, and he said there's no Shabbos? And they say, I don't know. But I said, so how are you doing it? And they say, I don't know. I said, I want to tell you something. Your kid's going to ask you this. Your kid's going to one day go to yeshiva and learn you can't work on Shabbos. And he's going to hear a song, ain't going to work on Saturday. And he's going to think, my father works on Saturday because his business. I said, and your kid's going to come. I said, you're going to look like a fool. He's not going to respect you. You have to have an answer. I'm not saying the Rav didn't have an answer. At least know what you're talking about. Why? And if you know why, and you know why it's maybe not the best, maybe not the worst, maybe we're on a trajectory to make it better. Right now I can't. Hopefully I will. You have to know what you're talking about. This is your business. This is part of your business, Rabbi said. It's part of your business. I say this all the time. You speak to these people that have not tens of workers, not hundreds of workers. They could have thousands of workers, and they have divisions. And you could speak to them, and they are so lucid about every part of the business, and the parts that they don't exactly micromanage, they know exactly who knows. So they say, that, they have the phone, that guy does, you understand? And they could get you answers in 2 seconds. In 2 seconds, they know everything about their business, because it's their business, and they live their business, and they breathe their business. And then you ask them, okay, so what do you do about that hotel on Shabbos? I'm pretty sure a hotel can't close on Shabbos. A hotel closes on Shabbos, there's no hotel, right? I said, so your hotel's open on Shabbos, so you have workers working on Shabbos. So what do you do? So all of a sudden they become not so knowledgeable about their business. Now, my shutef, my partner takes care of this. I said, your partner takes care of this? And you don't know what he does? No. I said, let's call your partner. And they call the partner, and know what the partner says? You guessed it. No, you take care of it. You understand? And they haven't discussed this in 20 years. I thought you're taking care of it. And no one takes care of it. And no one takes care of it. And you know why no one took care of it? Because in 20 years, no one asked them. No one asked them about what's going on. Because like I said, it's completely invisible. You don't have chinuch in this. So Rabbi say, we're going to discuss one halacha that's important to know. Rabbi say, we all have a basic familiarity, I'm assuming, I hope, with the laws of Amir La'akum. Yes? A certain basic exposure. Basic exposure. You have a light on in your room, and you can't sleep, or your kid can't sleep. Can you tell a guy to turn off the light? And the answer is, you don't tell a guy to turn off the light. Can't do it. It's called Amir La'akum, right? So what could we do? So we could not tell him to turn off the light, not tell him not to turn off the light, but we could tell him, Biramiza, there's a light on, and gosh, I wish there wasn't a light on. Right? And so you want me to turn it off? I didn't say that. So I'm not turning it off. I didn't say you shouldn't turn it off, right? And eventually the guy's like, he shuts the light, and everyone's like, yay, and he shuts the light. Okay, fine. And everyone knows this happens, right? And why is it like that? Because you can't tell a guy to turn it off. That is the issue. But if you didn't tell him to turn it off, you just told him your life's miserable because it's on, but there was no direct tzivui to turn it off, and somehow, eventually, he decided he'll just keep you quiet if he shuts it off. Well, you know that that's, in some cases, much. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but there's such a concept, and this is called remiza. Remiza is hinting, and it has to be remiza shaloi b'derech tzivui. You can't hint in a way where you're telling him, where you'll tell him, there's a room upstairs that I'd like you to shut off the switch so I can sleep, and I'm not telling you which one. So that's really remiza b'derech tzivui, where you're playing a game. You're telling him directly, I want something from you, and I'm not telling you what it is. That's remiza b'derech tzivui that you can't do. But you could say it in a much more indirect way, where you just say, I have a problem with this light, and I will not discuss anything further about that. And then eventually, and he'll walk away and say, but I have a problem with this light. So you didn't tell him to do anything, and that you understand is mutter, okay? And that is what I try to think of residential Amir La'akum. It's Amir La'akum in your house, okay? And many people take this concept and they export it into their business. They export it. So what do? They have a warehouse and they have UPS pickup, and the important thing is that the UPS pickup comes as late as possible, because all the orders that come in that day then get shipped out that day, and the people get it tomorrow. So other chevra who don't know the secret, they are getting 12 o'clock, but like every other person in Lakewood, they're all getting 4 o'clock. Okay, fine. Now, sometimes the UPS runs late, and it runs till 5 o'clock, right? And now, in the winter, some people actually have 5 o'clock. These are the great knackers. They're able to secure 5 o'clock. The later the better. It's always later the better. Okay. But what happens, what do you do when that pickup in your warehouse is after Shkia? So now we have a problem. I'm telling a guy to take the stuff and scan it and ksiva, and a yid can't do that, so can I tell a guy to do that? So I can't tell a guy to do that. So you were taught in school, there's something called Remiza Shaloi B'derech Tziva. So you tell the worker, I want this to go out on the UPS truck, but I'm not telling you to do it. And he's like, okay, I'll just do it. Like, right. Okay, so you took this concept of remiza and you brought it into your business. But the halacha is you can't do that. And why can't you do that? And the halacha is very clear, that when you have a worker, a poil, who's paid per hour, even if you don't tell him to work on Shabbos, if you tell him I'm paying you per hour, I'm not telling you when to do it, pick your hours, but I'll pay you per hour when you do it. And the vast majority of poskim who make the poskim who create, the core default halacha as we go, they say that when you have a worker who's working per hour, cannot work on Shabbos, even when you didn't tell him to work on Shabbos. And why is that? Because the relationship that I have with him is not because I told him to do it. The relationship that I have with him is because he's my worker, and a worker is an extension of me. And that's what the concept we have. Yad poil, yad bal bayis. And when the worker is working and he finds something, it goes to me, right? We all know these halachas about Metzia, Daf Yud. So a worker who's being paid per hour cannot work on Shabbos. No way, no how. Okay. Now, there's things you could do. You can make him not work, be paid per hour. You could pay him for the job. There's things we could do. There's ways to structure it. Sometimes there's no ways to structure it. Then you have a problem. Rabbi say, you're running a business. It could be a roofing company, or it could be any company you have, and you have a call center. Some call centers charge per call. That's not being paid per hour. But some call centers charge per hour, and some call centers just charge a set fee for X amount of calls minimum, but you just pay, it's not paid per hour. Okay, these are three different structures. But if the structure is that as soon as they pick up the phone, it starts like a taxi, like a minus. It starts going. It starts cheshboning minutes and hours and time, and you're paying these workers. It makes no difference if the worker is here in Miami, or if the worker is in Bangladesh, or the Philippines. You can't have such a structure. And even if you come to shul on Shabbos without your umbrella, and you sing Menucha v'Simcha, and you don't talk in davening, and you say, I'm keeping Shabbos, you're not, because your business is not closed on Shabbos, right? And there's like this circular thinking that people have, I see it all the time, where they say, it can't be usher, because I keep Shabbos. I'm Shemesh Shabbos, so if I do this, then if it's not usher, then I'm Mechal Shabbos, but I'm a Shemesh Shabbos. All these are weird things, but I've heard these things. Rabbi say these things don't really make sense. Rabbi say you need to audit your business. If you have workers that are being paid per hour, you have to pull the fire alarm. If they're working on Shabbos, pull the fire alarm in a figuratively sense, which means you have to do something about it. And I told this to Rabbi Blezer that there's not one guy, never ever, where a guy called me and I said, I'm sorry, and then the next day his business closed and he was unemployed. There's things to do, there's structures to be made. Sometimes it's a shtickle krich, sometimes it's not such a krich, but that's how it is. There's 80 people sitting online over here in this Jay-Z steakhouse because they have to eat kosher. There's a different store over here I noticed, also a steakhouse. There's like 14 people. Maybe the food's not good. I don't know. But we will wait online for about a half hour, which is something I can't. But they're doing it like herds of an animal waiting online, and they're doing it because they only eat kosher. So we're willing to do things that are krich because this is the halacha. And the bracha, we know this, we all know this, is that the bracha the whole week, the bracha comes through Shabbos. I was at an event, this goes back many years. I'm going to try to get the names right. And there's a fellow, Jerome Schottenstein, and he died. I got it right? And Jay is the son. Okay. And Jay, by the yard site, the 10th yard site, I don't know what it is, some yard site, I don't know how it ended up there. This is the story he said. He said that his father had a store in a mall in Cleveland, and they sold high-end clothing. Okay? I wasn't going to plan on saying it, so I'm just making sure I get this right. Yes, they sold high-end clothing, and he did well. Not super Schottenstein Talmud Art School well, just well. Did well. Provided a nice, decent, comfortable living. Okay. And then there were a few, this is in the 50s and 60s. And then in the 60s, the big mall owners got together. And there were a few big ones. And they said that we only could charge rent as much as our people are making. We would like lechatchila to charge the most rent, keep on charging more and more and more, and we'll make more and more money. But if we go up so much that the stores don't make money, they'll go out of business. And then we'll say we shouldn't have gone up so much, because then we'll have vacancies. So how can we make the most money possible? And they came out, very simple. We're going to make a law, and now not a law as a legal law, but a professional law, a policy, is that everyone in the mall has to follow all the hours of the mall. You're never allowed to close. Not one day, not even Shabbos, not even Sunday, not even Monday. Never close. And if the store is open every day, and we'll make that Shabbos becomes a shopping day, then the stores will make more money, and we will charge more money. Okay, so the mall owners made their own little version of Gzeirah Shmad. We're going to make that all the stores stay open on Shabbos. So Mr. Jerome Schottenstein had a store in a mall, and he got this letter in the mail. We're starting a new Shmad initiative. Stay open on Shabbos. Okay. So he said, he pfeifed them on. He's like, I'm not staying open on Shabbos. He pfeifed them on. And he sent them a letter back, and he told them exactly where to go. Okay. So they sent a letter from a lawyer, and they said, if you dare close on Shabbos, if you violate this edict to stay open on Shabbos, we're going to evict you legally. And he said, then do it. So they started the eviction process. Okay. So you know what he did? What do you think he did? He went to his rabbi. Okay. He went to his rabbi. And his rabbi said, well, so we got a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to sign some sort of paper that says that the janitor on Tuesday, he owns the store. And then, you don't come in anyways. The workers work for the janitor. Who did the janitor work for? I don't know. He's the president. Don't tell him about this. Whatever it is. Okay. Whatever. They started doing this whole pretend. I don't want to get into the whole thing. If it sounds weird, it's because it is. And you know what Jerome said? He said, I didn't start this business. My father started it with dry goods. I don't know what dry goods is. That clothing? Dry goods in the 30s. He said, my father is in the Olam MS. And if he sees with his name, the store open on Shabbos, he will come and get me. And I can't do that. And he told the rabbi, I can't do that. I can't open. I can't. He had enough. Yershmaim, this is not a person who looks like doesn't look like, it doesn't look like he's from straight out of Lakewood. And he said, I can't do that. So he let them evict him, and he had to open a different store. So he opened a different store at a different side of town in Cleveland. And this was more lower-end clientele. And Rabbi said, the lower-end clothing was going in volume that he had never experienced. And the cost proportionally wasn't that different, which means instead of paying $1 and selling it for 10, he was paying 1 penny and selling it for $2. So proportionally, he was making 200% anyways. And he said he never made so much money. So he opened another store, low end. And what happened is his father started to build, and then eventually became public. And when it's public, it has different halachas. And I feel bad we can't go into discuss all these halachas. But even though it's open on Shabbos now, that's because after it went public, and those are different type of halachas, because even though he's the CEO, He's not the majority owner, and etc. But Rabbi Say, he said like this. Jay Schottenstein said, he said, if my father would have signed that star to make the janitor of Tuesday the owner on Shabbos, I would have been Yerush a decently successful store, and I would have felt good about things. And he said the entire empire came about, and when he was Yerush, it was already hundreds of millions of dollars of value. And he said everything came about because he understood a very basic things. Stores should close on Shabbos. And you know, in the 30s, there were Rosh Hashivas from pre-war Europe who used to come to America to raise money. Rabbi Chanan, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Achber. And there used to be a march that they would do on Coney Island. And Coney Island was all, unfortunately, Fry Yidden had the stores open. And no, I'm not judging them. No way am I judging them. But the fact is, there were Yidden who had their stores open. It was a tremendous sign. And they used to make this march, and they used to try to go into them on Shabbos and try to explain to them. And Rabbi Achber 1 year joined, and Rabbi Chanan 1 year joined. And I tell people, what's the big deal? All they had to do is go on Sunday with these stars, just giving out the businesses to the janitors, right? But that's not really the way it's supposed to be. The best thing is to do is to close your business the way it's supposed to be. Close your business. If you want the shefa of bracha during the week, do it the way. Now, if you can't, we can talk about it. But if you could, you should. If you could, you should. Okay? Rabbi Say, I appreciate you all coming. This is a heartwarming response. This is a very, very critical initiative, and you should all be geben, should all be matzliach. Okay.
I'm not sure if Rabbi Kushner is aware, but officially on the schedule was that there was going to be a question and answer.
Okay. I see. The thing is that I didn't discuss many halachas, so this is a way I could.
So I just wanted to do a brief wrap up. Yeah. Before I go any further, as a reminder, there will be a 9:30 Maya for anyone who needs next door by the Kollel Parnas. So keep that in mind in the schedule. Again, a tremendous thank you to Rabbi Kushner and to their sponsors for the general initiative and to the event tonight. As Rabbi Kushner said, there is so much that can be done, and there is so much we can accomplish and do if we work together on educating ourselves. This idea of the initiative is to work together, to bring education to life, to bring it. Please stay away. Please sign up to the best you can about following events and all the details that are going to follow, and be a part of the movement. Without further ado, I'd like to call Rabbi Kushner back to the firing squad.
If there's no questions, there's no questions.
I'll start with the first question.
Yes.
Okay. Virtually every business on some level has to rely on marketing on one way or the other.
Okay.
Right? Is there any guidelines on what type of marketing is okay, not okay? At what point is a white lie really not so white? How much can I emphasize my goods? How much can I knock a competitor?
Okay.
Where does it go?
Oh, this is a very, very broad question. So what I'm going to do is as follows. I'm going to give a formula, because it's very, very difficult. Every question on every different ad is going to be individually scrutinized, and I can't address it. So, Rabbi Say, we're going to discuss right here, right now, a formula of monetary interactive business with a fellow Yid, specifically with a fellow Yid, okay? And I use this formula all the time when people call me with shilas, and they want to know if they should do something. If you're doing something, and that person, whatever you're doing, however you're displaying, so you're saying, you're making a huge sale to get people to come in to buy a product, and you only have one of the product or two of the products, but they're going to come into your store eventually to see the product, and then, right, okay, is it mutter, is it asur? It's very, very simple, Rabbi Say. This might be a form of Gnevis Das. If it would happen to you, you would say, great job marketing, these guys are good. Or you would say, what a ganif, what a shakran, right? It's a very simple formula. It's a very clear formula. You know, this guy called me. I'm trying to remember this case because I just recently had this, but I didn't plan on talking about it. Okay, so here's what happened. Let me tell you what happened. What happened is as follows. Where's Shuk? Is he still here? Oh, I want him to hear this. This is a good one. Okay, so what happens as follows. A guy is raising money. and he's putting in half. This is a very big deal. So this is, let's say, $10 million. He's putting up $5 million, and $5 million is being put up by the investors. Okay. The deal's closing in January, and this is, let's say, and this is going on in November, December. The element has to put up money before January, and the deal closes January. Yeah? Okay. And then he gets a phone call, and the seller, and this is, I wanted him to hear this because this is has tax repercussions. Essentially, the seller does not want on that calendar year to take half of the money. Okay. So what we're going to do is, I want half the money right now, and I want half the money in 12 months. That's the story. This guy calls me. Everyone gets the story? I'm buying a building for $10 million. We're closing on the building January. I'm putting up $5 million. I have a whole chevra of investors putting up $5 million. Okay. And so, and it's going to eventually, hopefully, sell in 3 years for X, and we'll get a return. Okay. And now the seller says, I only want half of the money. Now we can close. He knows this. And then in 12 more months, you give the other. Seller financed, no interest, because it's kedai for him for tax reasons. He calls me, he says, I'm just running this by you. I don't really have a shaila, but I'm just telling you what I'm doing. And this is what I'm doing. The $5 million that has to be put up now, the investors, I'm asking them to put it up now. It's a 3-year deal, they're putting up now. I don't have to tell them that I was supposed to put in with them. In other words, we're all shutfit in the deal. I'm holding the $5 million. I'm getting Toivas Hana of $5 million for 1 more year. I'm not paying financing on that because I'm not putting it in. He doesn't want $5 million. I'm going to keep that part of it. That's my part. And the investors, they're putting $5 million right now. And he's like, and what should they care? They already know they're putting in $5 million right now. So what difference does it make? And he said, and you know they did care. It's me the Sadaim. They can't forgive me that I'm keeping $5 million for a year. I said, really, you shouldn't. So really, you're all splitting everything, right? He's like, but they're fine putting up the money. I said, if someone did this to you, you would think this is the coolest thing. And he was quiet. He's like, I would think the guy's a ganef. And that's it. I said, so then you're a ganef. And it's a very important thing. Very important is that when you're judging yourself, you are so favorable. It's wonderful how favorable. There's a medrash that says when the Bnei Aaron, that they were killed when they went in to the Mishkan, it says there were two children, two of the sons, together. They both paskined that they were allowed to go in, and they weren't allowed to. And it says over there in the Medrash, they were mechuyev misa b'pnei shalu zumizu, which means each one didn't ask the other one. I said, imagine such a thing. Imagine I'm going in, and if this guy says I'm allowed to go in, I would say, no, you're not allowed to go in. You're going in yourself, right? But that's how it is. When you're handling yourself, you might have to. For Yenim, you shagets. He's doing the same thing you, and each one would have told the other guys the shagets, and they all both had to turn around, and that's what it is. You understand? So it's a very simple thing, and it's hard to answer specifics. So I'm giving you a formula, and that is, when you're doing something, you have to think about if you are on the receiving end, and part of this formula, and I heard this from our Blezer, and it's very, very important. I've said this always. I've been saying this. Maybe you heard it from me, maybe I heard it from you, but when you find yourself, because when this fellow called about the $5 million, I said, you think it's all good? You think that it wouldn't have tinus? Yeah, why should they? I said, let's call the oilam. Let's call the oilam. Let's tell the oilam what a good mitzvah you got. They'll probably be so happy for you, right? Right? So he's like, no, I can't tell them, right? So that's the biggest red flag in business. You're doing something which is 100% mutter. Not only is it mutter, it's gavaldik. But you wouldn't tell the guy what you're doing. Why don't you tell him? He should also be tzefrieden and b'simcha what you're doing. It's so hard because there's such a negias, it's so biased, right? So the only thing we could do is be transparent and think about it in reversed angles. That's the best formula I can give. All right, so I answered all your questions. Okay, fine, very good. Shkoyach. Yes, sure.
At the H3 conference,
okay.
last year, I think,
okay.
the brother said that most most e-commerce shilas are mutter, meaning
100%, 100% right. 100% right.
Rav also just said that if
Which Rav? You're not talking about me.
Yes.
Oh, I said this?
Yes.
Oh, I was agreeing with myself. Yes. Yes, it's 100% true.
that look, at Chila, somebody should close their business on Shabbos.
I said that it's covered Shabbos. That's not what I said. I mean, look at
You should try to close your business on Shabbos.
You asking about what I just said today?
Yeah.
I was being very specific. I'm defining a business open as workers working on Shabbos.
The workers.
That's all I'm saying. Because
Being an autopilot is separate.
let me tell you something. In your house, you have thermometers that are running on Shabbos.
They don't make any money.
I'm sorry?
They don't make me any money.
They don't make you money, but they're running. They're doing malachis for you.
Yes.
But we paskin shvisas kelim was mutter. So we're not biased against making money.
Okay.
You know? Okay. Fine. All right. Thank
you very much.
You had a wonderful crowd here.
Good job.